Members of the Committee to Re-elect the President were in Jacksonville today on their campaign trek through Florida. And for a report on that, here's Brenda Sutton.
Wife of the Attorney General, Mrs. Richard Kleindienst, led the trio in comments to the news media and members of the Republican Party. Mrs. Kleindienst said that in Washington, D.C., where the President has the most direct control over law enforcement, the crime rate has gone down 26% in the first 6 months of this year. With her was Mrs. Herbert Stein, whose husband is an economic advisor to the President. Mrs. Stein stressed that 2.4 million people have been added to the workforce during the Nixon administration. Mrs. George Schultz, whose husband is Secretary of Labor, said that the President's intention is to hold the line on taxes and government spending in order to control inflation. Later in the morning, the three Nixon supporters left for visits to Orlando and Tampa. Another sign of mounting political interest today was an open forum at the Southside Women's Club. The official greeter was Charlie Brown, a large collie. Local candidates in next Tuesday's election addressed over 100 women. Charlie's jacket said, "Vote as you doggone please, but please vote."
And Dave, for campaigning or anything else outdoors, this has been ideal weather.
Yes, and it will continue to be ideal weather right on through tomorrow. We expect much more of the same. In fact, around North Florida today, almost like summer again, the warm temperatures up to as high as 86 degrees in Gainesville. Started out this morning with 64. While over in Daytona, the morning started out with a low of 72, working its way up to a very pleasant 81 degrees. A little bit closer to home, it took advantage of the sea breezes out on the beaches, up to 81 degrees there, starting out at 68, while downtown Jacksonville, just a degree higher, 82, and the morning low mercury was 64. Tomorrow should be a day very much like today. We expect those east to southeasterly winds to continue, and just clear to partly cloudy skies, a bit of fog in the morning, and rain very unlikely tomorrow. Well, for the boaters, we expect those winds out of the east and southeast, 10 to occasionally 15 knots, seas 2 feet near shore and as high as 4 feet offshore. Clear to partly cloudy skies prevail at this time over the two-state area, for the most part that is, except in the extreme northern reaches. In fact, the only really cloudy station is in Atlanta, where it's 66 cloudy degrees there, while most of the stations to the south are reporting just partly cloudy to completely clear skies with very pleasant conditions. Here in Florida, the capital city, 81 under clear skies. Out in the Panhandle, 78 degrees in Pensacola. A bit of haze there, but skies clear. The southern portion of the state, for the first time in a long time, no showers at all anywhere in that southern half of the state. It's dry all over Florida. Looking at our radar, we can see that at least within 50 miles, absolutely nothing showing up. Really great conditions, just plain no rain in sight. At present, outside of TV 12 studios, our temperature, a very comfortable 72 degrees. The relative humidity is 76%. Our winds out of the east-southeast, only up to about 6 to 7 miles per hour. Barometer on its way up, 30 and 1400 inches. Well, old man winter is really taking it serious as far as the west is concerned. One small area of Wyoming had temperatures below zero this morning, while the 32 degrees or freezing line dipped all the way down into old Mexico in some places and then zoomed back up behind the storm. So winter is serious, and winter is moving toward the east. This cold line tonight will be farther to the east. Now, the warm air flowing up in advance of this storm is rather obvious by the 60-degree line spreading all the way up into the southern portion of Indiana and Illinois. Of course, this warm wedge will move farther to the east as the storm moves off. Well, you can't have all that cold weather without leaving a few calling cards, and that cold weather left calling cards in Denver. 13 inches of the white fluffy stuff fell there. But that was nothing in comparison to a little town called Woodland Park, which is some 20 miles to the northwest of Colorado Springs. 34 inches of that white powder all over the ground there. Responsible for this entire mass is the low-pressure area or winter storm now over Kansas. It's moving toward the east and northeast. In advance of this system, heavy rain falls throughout much of the Missouri area, right up to around Chicago, and farther off to the east. Now, as far as we're concerned, that rain will move on farther to the northeast, but the cold front will approach Florida, entering the state Friday, and it'll turn a little bit cooler here by Saturday. While our forecast for tomorrow, continuing rather nice weather. Partly cloudy and mild, the high 85, overnight low 62, southeasterly winds 10 to 15. Leave a minute or two early for work in the morning because there will be a bit of that fog around. Eric?
Thank you, Dave. In a moment, Walt Dunbar and a look at sports.
At Carnation, we just built a bigger instant breakfast. New special morning. It adds even more nutrition to milk than regular Carnation Instant Breakfast. Now there's 33% more protein, plus more vitamins, minerals, energy. Milk contributes substantial nutrition. Read the label. No time for your regular breakfast? Have News Special Morning, the bigger instant breakfast.